Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring the dawn of reason, Greece, iron, and the Miletus School. We're going to travel back to the exact moment humanity actually shifted its gaze from the heavens straight down to the earth. It's that critical pivot where we went from relying on ancient myths to explain the world to literally laying down the very first foundational bricks of modern science. It was an intellectual revolution, and honestly, it changed absolutely everything.
So how exactly did humanity stop blaming the gods for everything and start discovering science? I mean, for thousands of years, if a storm hit or a crop failed, the answer was super simple, right? The gods were angry. End of story. But how did we break away from that? Well, the answer isn't just some story about a few isolated geniuses sitting around pondering the universe. It's actually deeply rooted in the dirt, in practical everyday tools, in commerce, and the normal trades of ancient people.
Just take a look at the sheer monumental scale of ancient Greek civilization. When you see massive stone structures like this, it's really easy to just get overwhelmed by the physical achievement. But to truly understand how they built a society capable of pulling this off, we have to look past the pillars. We need to understand the profound mental shift that made it all possible. And spoiler alert, that revolution didn't kick off in a sacred temple. It started in the bustling marketplace.
Think about the Bronze Age. For centuries, society was heavily stratified, mostly ruled by priests and old myths. But then the Iron Age hits, and it completely changes the game. Iron essentially democratized tools. Trade exploded. And suddenly, practical, hands-on knowledge, stuff like pulleys, shipbuilding, and navigation, began to totally eclipse the old authority of mythological rule.
Which brings us right to ground zero for our story, the city of Miletus. Placed right on the coast of the Aegean Sea, Miletus was definitely not some isolated kingdom. It was this bustling, thriving commercial hub, connected by land all the way to the ancient civilizations of Iraq and by sea to Egypt. And because it was so hyper-focused on trade and commerce, it was remarkably free from those rigid aristocratic traditions of the past. The big thinkers here, they weren't isolated priests. They were merchants, travelers, and craftsmen. They were deeply, practically tied to their trades.
And this timeline brilliantly illustrates what I like to call an evolution of an idea relay race. In this unique, practical environment of Miletus, a very specific school of thought emerged, the Miletus School. Instead of just accepting the old myths, they consecutively tackled one massive, fundamental question. What is the world actually made of? As we move through this, you'll see how Thales, Anaximander, Anaximenes, and Heraclitus literally passed the baton of logic, refining this single magnificent question over generations.
Section 1. Thales of Miletus, the practical philosopher. So the relay begins with Thales, and there's a famously practical story about him. While visiting Egypt, he managed to calculate the height of the Great Pyramid using nothing but a clever application of basic geometry. He just waited for the exact time of day when his own shadow was perfectly equal to his height. And at that precise moment, he measured the length of the pyramid shadow, knowing it would exactly equal the pyramid's height. It's just this beautiful, elegant use of observation and logic. Absolutely no divine intervention required. Taking that exact same practical mindset and applying it to the entire universe, Thales proposed his grand theory, his first principle. He argued that the origin of absolutely everything was water. Now, he likely drew that inspiration from older Sumerian and Egyptian creation myths where land emerged from primordial waters. But here's the real kicker, the reason Thales is such a pioneer. He crucially stripped the gods right out of the equation. He took a purely mythological concept and transformed it into a material, natural explanation for the universe. Section 2. Anaximander and Anaximenes, the evolution of logic. The baton passes to Thales' student, Anaximander, and Anaximander looks at Thales' theory that the Earth rests on water, and he immediately spots a glaring logical flaw. He asks, okay, if the Earth rests on water, then what does the water rest on? And what does that rest on? You see the problem, right? It's an infinite regress. So Anaximander argued that the Earth doesn't actually need to rest on anything at all. It could just be suspended in space, kept in place simply because it's equidistant from everything else in the universe. For the time, this was a staggering leap in logical reasoning. Anaximander then proposed the concept of the infinite. He envisioned this incredibly dynamic universe made of earth, water, mist, and fire. And drawing analogies directly from things he knew, like the potter's wheel and the blacksmith's forge, he suggested that stars are actually just a massive ring of cosmic fire, and we're just seeing that fire peeking through small, tube-like holes in a thick mist. Next up, Anaximenes steps in. He shifts the base element away from the infinite and proposes that everything is fundamentally made of air. But his really massive breakthrough was explaining exactly how air transforms into other things. He observes that heat causes evaporation and cold causes condensation. The crucial takeaway here is that Anaximenes introduced the foundational scientific concept that quantitative changes, like, say, a drop in temperature or an increase in density, actually cause qualitative physical changes in matter.
Section 3. Heraclitus, the universe in motion.
So Heraclitus takes all this physical observation and completely shatters the idea of a static, unchanging universe. His whole philosophy is famously captured in just 2 words: everything flows. Heraclitus proposed that fire is the true base element of the universe, not because it's some solid building block, but precisely because it represents constant, inevitable, relentless change. As the famous saying goes, you can never step into the same river twice, because new waters are always flowing in. But wait, if everything is constantly changing like a fire, why does a rock look so solid? Why does the table in front of you feel perfectly still? Well, he brilliantly explains this through a concept he called opposite tension. He argued that things only appear stable due to a delicate, dynamic balance of conflicting forces constantly working against each other. He compared it to the string of a drawn bow or a musical instrument. It looks perfectly still, sure, but only because immense opposing forces are pulling it taut in opposite directions. Basically, it's a universe held together by tension.
Section 4. From myth to reason.
Let's take a step back from specific elements like water, air, or fire for a second. Why does this entire progression matter to us today? It matters because of the profound mental shift it represents. Look, while their specific answers might seem a little silly to us now, their underlying method was completely revolutionary. They flat out replaced the gods with material explanations. They relied heavily on physical observation. They connected the practical problem-solving of daily trades to abstract cosmological thought. By absolutely refusing to just throw their hands up and say, Zeus did it, they effectively separated science from religion and laid the ultimate foundation for the modern scientific method.
As we wrap up this journey from myth to reason, it really leaves you with a humbling perspective. I mean, these ancient Greeks sincerely thought they had the universe completely figured out with air and fire, using the very best logic of their day. It kind of leaves you wondering, as humanity continues to evolve, how will our descendants 2,000 years from now judge the scientific truths we hold so dearly today? What gods are we still clinging to right now without even realizing it? Thanks for checking out this explainer with me. Keep questioning and keep learning.